Female prison officers dating prisoners. This is a growing problem that's been appearing in the news for some time now. What should be done? Let's discuss it. Oi, Saveloys, welcome back to Beyond Conviction. Firstly, big thanks to all those guys who have subscribed to my channel. You clearly like the content, and that is very much appreciated. So, today's video is on what we've been seeing in the news quite a lot recently, and that is female prison officers getting on and canoodling with prisoners. It's a growing problem. Well, I think it is personally. And whilst I was in prison, I did see some snippets of that sort of thing going on. So I just wanted to discuss that, and hopefully we might get an answer as to what can be done. So the first case I want to discuss is a very recent one, where prison officers Jay Gascoigne, who was 25 years old, and L. Watson, 27, they were both jailed for their illicit relationships with so-called gangster brothers Dil Nawaz and Hack Nawaz, while they were serving officers at HMP Buckley Hall, which is down in the northwest. However, these two were not convicted for bringing any contraband or illicit items into the prison. They were just in what they thought was they were genuine relationships. But however, this is misconduct in the public office, and you just can't do that because it compromises the integrity of the prison officers serving in the prison, and also it can lead to jealousy amongst prisoners, as in, why are them two getting treated better than me? Why are them two getting all the cushy jobs? Or why are them two getting favours and things move faster for them but not us? And it can create a lot of animosity on a wing. So it's obviously best practice to not be in relationships with prisoners, the same as why GPs can't be in relationships with the patients, because it creates a level of unprofessionalism at the very least. But however, in a jail where the smallest thing can cause massive problems, riots, kickoffs, and loss of discipline and loss of control, this is why relationships are not permitted in this environment, for exactly that reason. However, they did not they didn't do anything illegal outside of that relationship, as in they didn't, like I say, bring any drugs, phones, illicit items. But for the discipline and good order of a prison, staff need to remain professional, and inmates are inmates and staff are staff. But it's not to say that all female staff are doing this. I mean, I've met a couple of female prison officers during my time inside, and they were absolutely fantastic. The most professional, very fair, and they do the jobs to the best of their ability. But I'd like to say that those staff that I've mentioned there during my time in jail they were a bit older, married, and I only knew they were married because I had, with the rings on the fingers and stuff, and they were older and they weren't daft. But prisons have struggled to recruit staff and further struggle to retain staff. So they're recruiting younger and younger prison officers. And when you've got young ladies of this generation, who are born in, early 2000s, for example, they don't have the life experience nor the social ability to not get roped into, relationships. And a lot of young girls these days, and this is just my opinion, not all, but many, they're craving attention. So when you put a young girl who may be perceived as pretty, or maybe not even pretty, I mean, in a prison every woman's pretty after a long time, you put her in a wing full of blokes, people are going to be after her, people are going to be cracking on and trying to flirt with her and saying appropriate things. And there's been times where I've witnessed this, where you may have someone who may be perceived as okay looking, and lads are trying to crack on, and she'll just nick him for it. If she's a genuine officer and she's professional, she'll just nick him because she won't be standing for it, because she's there to do a job, which is correct in my opinion. But like I say, I'm seeing it a lot in the news, where a lot of young female staff are being, roped in, and they're falling, I say fall victim, it does take two to tango, but a couple are groomed, for want of a better word, groomed into relationships, just so that those certain prisoners can use them, as a way of bringing contraband in, a way of, getting information on other prisoners, and getting, unfair advantages. So that's obviously why relationships aren't permitted. And I'm sure you lot will remember a couple of years ago where there was that prison officer in Wandsworth Prison in London, where there was a video circulating. I won't mention what it contained, but it contained some, graphic XXX rated content of, her having it off of another inmate. An inmate. And again, that's, lads can get jealous, women get jealous, lads get equally jealous. Why is she romping with this guy? Why didn't she come to me? Then people will get the hump with that guy, and it just turns the place into what's already a pressure cooker. It just creates extra problems, and it makes the prison service look unprofessional, of which then people stop respecting the prison service, and the UK prisons are out of control as they are anyway. And adding this, adding a bit extra bit of petrol to this already burning flame, I think it's just not on. But in the old days, when I spoke to my father, he told me that you've very rarely seen a female prison officer in a male prison, because he went to prison in like the 80s, where female prison officers worked in female prisons, and obviously male prison officers worked in male prisons. But then there is that argument of, well, should males be starved of, female contact, and vice versa? Should female prisoners be starved of male contact? And I think that's why they try and bring some form of normality into the prison, where you can, associate with female members of staff. But I say bring a sense of normality. You're in prison. A prison's not a normal environment. It's not normal to spend 23 hours a day behind your door. It's not normal to have to put an application in to, get a phone number approved. It's not normal to queue up for your food all the time. It's not normal to only see your family, once a week. I don't think, this is my opinion, it's quite a strong opinion, which is why I want you guys to tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if I'm right, or tell me if I'm right, or just let me know your thoughts. I think female officers should work in female prisons and male officers should work in male prisons, with the exceptions of, your nurses and admin and stuff like that. But if you're working live on the wings and you're coming into close contact with male prisoners, I don't think female prison officers should be working in those environments, especially young lasses, where it's what they call the Instagram generation now, where everyone just wants to have attention. I'm not just saying that females, there's men as well. Everyone wants attention, everyone wants to be the centre, everybody wants to be the best looking, everybody wants to be, the most favoured. And trust me, you get a young lass who may not be perceived as, traditionally good looking, she's going to get attention. Especially when you've got lads who've done 3, 4, 5 years, who haven't got a girlfriend on the outside. It's human instinct to try and crave a bit of attention, and it's animal instinct to try and mate with someone of the sex that you're attracted to. I know this is it's a bit of a controversial topic, because I'm all for women being able to go into male-dominated roles. Everyone should have the same opportunities as others. But I think there's one environment, a prison, where having females in there, like or young girls, I don't think it should really be allowed, unless they get not psychiatrically, but have a mental health assessment as to gauge their ability to, conduct themselves with professional relationships, and, have relationship skills. If they're, someone who's 19, 20, 21-year-old who's coming into a job like that, they probably have not had a lot of relationship experience, and they don't know what to say no to, and what they think is a bit that shouldn't happen. I think that's, it's a bit of an oversight from the prison system, because all they want to do is just get staff in and try and keep staff, because they're constantly losing staff because it's such a high stress and quite a low paid job. Some of them barely scratch 30Ks a year. I don't think they should certainly not be recruiting young female staff or young staff at all. But in a male prison, have females in there, there's already going to be, some form of, not competition, but attempts from prisoners to try and canoodle with them. So I don't think, young single females should be working in male prisons. They should be working in female prisons, and the same as it goes the other side. Not to say that all female officers are up to this. They're certainly not. There's male prison officers who have had relationships with female prisoners on the female estate. Unfortunately, that's not really reported on a lot, because it just goes hand in hand. There's a lot less female prisoners in the UK. Most of the prisons in the UK are male. So a lot of the stuff you see in the news regarding this sort of topic is female prisoners having illicit relationships with... female prison officers having illicit relationships with male prisoners. I'd like to know what you guys think is the best way forward, because this is happening a lot. And this story, just because it was recent, I focused on this story with these two ladies, there is an issue with, like I say, female officers going into male prisons. I'm not saying all, there's obviously just a very, very minute number, but one's too many. It should be professional, and you should be engaging with, people's rehabilitation and ensuring that they're not coming back to prison, and ensuring that they're cared for, and give them a few tools to go outside and work with so they don't come back. You shouldn't be compromising that by having relationships with them, because then they're not going to be focused on, how not to return to prison. They just think, oh, prison's cushy. Even in prison, I can have relationships. And that's the main thing you're meant to be deprived from, to be honest with you. When your freedom's taken away, the main thing that men really suffer with is not having female attention, and which is a reason not to go back inside. So there's no good that can come from it. There is no good that can come from female officers having relationships with male prisoners, or male officers having relationships with female prisoners, or a mixture of other, sexual orientations, So what do you guys think? Do you think it should only be male officers in male prisons and female officers in female prisons? Or do you think they should stop recruiting, young female officers? I know there's been a couple, middle-aged, slightly older officers that have canoodled with prisoners. Yes, I know that. But you can't, it's not feasible, I don't think, to say, right, no more female officers working in male prisons. Because there's so few female prisons, you're kind of neglecting these ladies a chance at a job. So I don't think that is really feasible. But on the principal side of things, male prisons, male prison officers, female prisons, female prison officers, like it used to be years ago. You didn't really have nothing like that going on, at all, because it was just so controlled. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think. What should we do to stop this sort of thing happening and bringing the prison service into disrepute? Let me know in the comments. What should we do to stop illicit relationships between prison officers and prisoners? Let me know. Peace and love, guys.